Hey everybody, so if you know me, you already know what this thing is. And no, I didn't start playing the piano. This is actually a guitar. It's my second guitar that I ever have. Now, just to give you the full transparency, this actually came back into my life because of my good friend Jorge Hernandez, who's now in New York, in Brooklyn. He called me in the summer of 2019 basically to ask me a question. So we'll get to that in a second. But first, let's take a look at what we have inside the coffin, is what we call this case, because it just looks crazy. That is a Jackson Rhoads, which is an offset, very extreme flying V. It does have some upgrades aftermarket before my time, but it has EMG 81's in it, which if you know anything about rock music, killer. This model was actually made in Japan, as you can see here. And I've never looked up the serial number, so maybe we'll do that today. But very simple guitar. Volume, three-way selector with a funny little Telecaster type of a top hat knob, they call that, because it kind of looks like a top hat, right? And licensed Floyd Rose. And this guitar is just a workhorse. It's definitely have seen since years of, being beaten up. And of course, with all these pointy guitars, you always end up losing some wood on the edge because, well, if they're pointy and don't hit something, well, what's the point of it being pointy? So the story goes with this guitar that I first had, of course, the Biscayne 6, which is still sitting over here. I've come to love this guitar, but it is not easy guitar to play. This, on the other hand, I really wanted a Les Paul. I mean, that's been my dream guitar, to have a Les Paul. But when I saw this hanging the place that I took guitar lessons at was a place in Miami called Not Just Guitars. And they had this hanging there. I mean, you could just picture this in the back of the store hanging, I mean, it's just so mean looking. So mean looking. And it's the Rhoads EX. So yeah, I was lucky enough that I think this was like my birthday present or something. I don't remember. I was like 14 or 15. And then not too long after, I ended up joining a band that I played the drums in. And the singer was Jorge Hernandez. And then Tony Galarte was one of the main songwriters and guitar player. And it's actually funny, the day that I went to try out for the band, I showed up with my drum set. I'm thinking I'm all cool, it's gonna be all great. And I forgot my drumsticks at home. So I'm freaking out. And I'm like, what am I gonna do? I don't have a car. I'm like 14, whatever, 15. And I was like, you know what? I don't care. Is there like a stick? So I literally went in the backyard and grabbed like a tree branch and we cut it in half. And I swear to God, I used the tree branch, like cut in half, to play the drums, which ended up warping the hell out of my cymbals and dented out my drum heads. But it was like caveman drumming. It was so much fun. And the reason why I tell that story is because Jorge had this guitar, this red Strat copy that had a humbucker in the pickup, but I don't think it was a very good pickup. It just got this awful feedback. I mean, it was like the worst feedback always. Every time you play, it was like this awful feedback. So what do you do when you get awful feedback? Well, you've got to either upgrade or whatever. And at the same time, guys, you got to remember, this is before YouTube, before the internet really was a thing. So we didn't know what to do. So what I ended up doing one day, as I just told Jorge, I was like, George, why don't you just borrow my guitar? I've got two of them. I'll still practice with the Biscayne and just use this one. And that's what ended up happening. And he ended up using it so much that one day he just approached me. He's like, hey, can I just buy it off of you? I was like, cool. Yeah, I guess so. So, gave him a fair price. He bought it. And then I turned around and used that money to buy my third guitar, which will be featured in a different video. But today we're going to do something that's long overdue because Jorge bought the guitar, right? And then in 2019, this is, I don't know, what was that, 95 or 6 or something when he bought this guitar. And then in 2019 in the summer, he told me that he's moving to New York and he needed to make some room. So the first question he asked me was if I still play. And I was like, yeah, I do. And he goes, well, do you want the Rhoads back? I was like, what do you mean? He goes, well, I was going to sell it, And I basically made an agreement with Jorge. So I said, this is not my guitar. It was my second guitar, but it's not my guitar anymore. It's his. It's Jorge's guitar. So I've been taking care of it. And honestly, it's a great guitar to play. It's so much fun. But it needs new strings. It needs a new setup. I mean, you can hear how vibrant this thing is. I mean, it's like super resonant, you know. I mean, it sounds right. It's so resonant. Like the wood, it just rings and you can feel it. And when you got distortion running through this thing, oh man, it just breathes. I mean, these pickups, they truly explode. I mean, you know, just might as well, right? That's why we have to keep an amp on the table. So, to give you an idea, like clean, very dark, and honestly, these are dead strings. So, a little bit out of tune. So the fine tuners there for the Floyd Rose, you know. So clean, it sounds nice, you know. The nice chimey. Oops, sorry, wrong chord. But once you put distortion on this thing, some good gain, it just comes to life, you know. So, the volume wasn't even on the way up. This is it with the volume all the way up. So, like I said, tons of fun to play. I kind of don't want to put it down, but, you know, there's other things more important to do. Like, what type of strings are we going to put on here? So, I guess the first things first, I don't want to put 11s on this because I think it'll be too high. But I don't know what type of strings it has on it. I should probably get a caliper to measure that. I think it's 10s. Let's see. The ultimate test. 15th fret, then. I think it's 10s. But the tricky thing with Floyd Roses is that you have to block off the trem when you're changing strings. So I have this bottle opener I keep in my wallet for the most part. And that's my tensioner. So what I do is I'll lift the bridge a little bit, which actually I'm going to use anything, doesn't matter, but it's going to lift the bridge, slide that card underneath it, make sure that it's stable, and now, as you can see there, cards in place, feeling the edges because I just want to make sure that it truly is there. I don't feel great about that. It's underneath the trem, so. Yep, okay. So most important rule about a Floyd Rose,